I'm currently studying microbiology at the University of California, Riverside, and I'm in my second year. So I'm a little bit of a baby compared to the actual doctors here, but I like to think I know some things at this point, and it's really good to talk with all of you. This is especially exciting for me because I've been coming for a few months, and every month in the description they say we might talk about butts, and they haven't. But tonight we actually did, so I'm so validated. So for those of you who've been keeping up, yeah, finally we get to experience this together. So, as with the theme of the night, we are going to be talking about microbiology. Woo! So, if you take away 3 things from tonight, I hope you will remember. Number 1, we are microbes. I'll explain that in a little bit. Number 2, because we are microbes, there are consequences to killing microbes. And number 3, when we think about microbes, we should think about them in context rather than a binary between evil microbes and beneficial microbes. So with that in mind, quick question. Raise of hands, who thinks germs are bad? No? I do. All right. When I was a kid, I hated germs. I got sick all the time. I don't know if any of you guys experienced this too. It's the strep throat thing. Yeah, anyone else? Yeah, I was in the doctor's office pretty much every week, it felt like. And I had a lot of time to look at those posters that they have on the wall of those freaky cartoon germs that are trying to scare kids into washing their hands and not picking their nose and all the other kid things that kids love to do. Usually looks something like this, something to freak you out, something to scare you. Cool. This is the kind of thing that scares us as adults, right? We all grew up to be germaphobes, we all like our Purell. Scary, freaky, germs, microbes, terrifying. But the problem with that is that we are actually microbes, and we can't be afraid of ourselves. So, anyone take a guess? What's the dominant life form on Earth? I'm going to try and see if anyone has any guesses.
Fungus. Bacteria.
Close. Very close. Anyone else?
Eukaryotic bacteria?
I'm pretty sure that's up there too. Honestly, there's like a few that are like almost over the top. Anyone else? These are all like right in the same range. It's bacteriophages. So bacteriophages, for those who don't know, are viruses that eat bacteria. That's terrifying. You've got 2 of the scariest things fighting each other. So yeah, number 1 is bacteriophages. Number 2 is the stuff that they eat, which is bacteria, and their cousins, which are called archaea. And bacteria and archaea come together to what we like to call prokaryotes. And this is just one section of microbes. So fun fact, in 1 handful of soil, there are more prokaryotes, so bacteria and archaea, than there are humans that have ever existed. So that should give you a sense of how many microbes there are. Yeah, I know, freaky, right? But, trick thing, we are microbes. So, did you guys know that 1 out of every 2 cells in your body, that's 50% of the cells in your body, are not human? It's bacteria, archaea, fungi, 1 and 2. That's pretty crazy. So even you yourself are not entirely human. So Venom, how many of you guys have seen Venom? It was alright. Yeah, I had some complaints, but we're not going to do that. So basically, you guys essentially have your own symbiote, right? That 50% of the cells in your body are this alien ecosystem that's living in you and on you. Did you know that it also actually, well, Russell talked about this a little bit, it determines when you're hungry, what you want to eat. It also helps protect you from disease. Sound familiar? Not only that, not only are half the cells in your body microbes, even the cells of you that are human are made of what used to be microbes. So, you guys heard about mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. These guys, it is believed, used to be bacteria that thousands and thousands and millions of years ago learned to live inside of our cells and give us energy. And so now we're one singular organism. So even the parts of you that are human still used to be microbes. Even your DNA is not entirely human. 6% of your DNA is what used to be viruses. Viruses that fused into your genome. So not only are you venom, you're also spider. So, these microbes are super important. They keep us alive. They're good. They're not all diseases. And so we can't get rid of them without consequence, even the bad guys. So, as we know, don't panic. Not all microbes are germs. So you're not 50% germs. That would be a nightmare. But our society is still so germophobic. We think that these microbes are like coming to hurt us, that they're contaminating everything. And so we use like bleach, soap, Purell, antibiotics, whatever we can do to try and like cleanse them off of us because we don't realize they're a part of us. I even saw an episode of My Strange Addiction where a woman was addicted to cleaning her house with bleach. Everything in her house with bleach because she was so afraid of the germs. Don't be like that. If you have a My Strange Addiction based on you, it's probably not a good sign. So we can all get stressed because these microbes are coming to hurt us, and it's awful, and they're invading everything, and infection, and scary pictures of plates that you see. You've probably seen floating around Facebook occasionally, there's always something that's like, we put these Petri dishes under a blow dryer, and look what came out. It's terrible. Or we swiped your sheets on this Petri dish, and look at all the bacteria that's growing there. Ah, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. Don't be afraid. Most of them aren't going to hurt you. We have this need for everything to be clean in our society. And that's a good thing. It's helped keep most of us alive and healthy. It's part of what sets apart first world countries from others is that we have the ability to keep things clean with things like antibiotics and healthcare that's available generally. But it leads to some weird quirks. So one of the things that we've been able to generally get rid of is parasites, some of which are microbes. And one of the weird things about that is now we have allergies, and those two things are actually connected. Theory is that you have antibodies in your body, these little defensive mechanisms here, that are born and raised to fight parasites. And if they don't find any, they start to get really antsy, and they start to be like, why am I here? And they start looking for bad guys when none exist. And so they see pollen, and they're like, aha! You are what I've been looking for. And they start attacking it. It makes you feel like you're sick. That's allergies for you. It's just your body overreacting because it doesn't have any real threats anymore, so it starts going crazy.
So if we have bad allergies, should we just get a parasite?
A lot of people do. I'm not recommending it. But a lot of people do. There's like a black market for getting tapeworms so that you will no longer have allergies. So that line of thinking, a lot of people agree with you. I'm not going to say one way or another. I will not be held accountable for you getting some weird disease. But I've heard that people do that. So take that for what you will. I mean, it's just about as weird as a poop sample, right? Another weird quirk of the positives that our society has in being extra clean, antibiotics, this has already been covered a little bit, but one of the crazy things about antibiotics and why we're struggling to make them work as well is because bacteria are really sneaky. They are not like people. If one bacteria figures out how to evade those genes that it has can be spread to every other bacteria. So it only takes one guy to figure it out and then tell all of his friends. And that's why we have to keep developing stronger and stronger antibiotics because they keep evading every punch that we give them. It's like this molecular arms race. Thankfully, we have the development of, I promise this will make sense. We have the development of some better antibiotics on the market right now. Some of the ones in the past were more like grenades, so they just kind of blow up all of the microbes in their path, and that's really bad. Like we just learned about it. It's like 50% of us. Russell talked about how our gut microbes are really important and how antibiotics can harm that. But thankfully, some of the ones that are being developed now, they're more like snipers. And so they're targeted to exactly seek out the one bad guy that they need to get. But still, it's kind of like we're fighting a losing battle with antibiotics. We're going to have to keep developing them forever and ever and ever. So, all right, moving on to our next topic. It's important to look at microbes in context, kind of as a spectrum, a diversity of microbes, rather than just thinking of them as good guys or bad guys. If all the microbes on Earth were germs, we would be dead for sure. That's not true. Thankfully, in reality, it's more of an alignment chart of microbes, right? You got your lawful good, your chaotic evil, you got your clerics and your healers and everything else. They play every role that you can imagine they play, and they're everywhere. So it's not just good guys and bad guys anymore. But we don't do this to animals for some reason. We don't teach our kids, okay, Sally, you need to learn this. There are good goats and there are bad goats. It just doesn't make any sense. We don't, or even in ways that, like, I would imagine, I guess the argument would be like, well, like, some microbes are actually dangerous. And I'm like, all right, you don't teach your kids that lions are bad and birds are good. Like, we don't define animals by their threat to us, but that is exactly what we do to microbes. In reality, microbes just have a particular set of skills that play well with some, but maybe not with others. Maybe they play really well with us, but in some other animal it makes them sick. Or maybe it makes this plant sick, but helps this other plant. A great example of this is cholera. So cholera is a devastating disease that kills tens of thousands of people every single year. But interestingly, its natural habitat isn't people, it's water. Generally, it's found in rivers. And what happens is that people drink it, and it freaks out because it's not in a river anymore. And it starts causing chaos, and it starts bumping around, and it makes people sick, and it ends up killing them. So I like to think about it like this. A bear in the woods is fine. A bear in a skyscraper is a problem. A lot of these microbes are only a problem if it's something that we eat, if it's something that we drink, if it's something that we smell. But in their environment, they're a very integral part of the ecosystem. And so just getting rid of them isn't really going to solve the problem. It's going to cause some downstream problems. Another example. In the soil beneath your feet, right now, soil, floor, below the floor, there's a very delicate exchange of gases going on with all of the microbes that I told you are in that like one little handful. Imagine how many there are in like an entire field. And these microbes, they're largely in charge of cycling all of the air that we're breathing and that the plants are breathing. And one of the issues is that us humans like to go in and start messing everything up. And so there's this very, very, very tight cycle that was good without us, but we introduced fertilizers. And fertilizers are great because they make our plants grow big and strong, they're wonderful, they increase our yields, they're helping to feed the planet. The problem is that as we're adding more and more nitrogen to the soil, microbes that like to eat nitrogen are swarming in way more than they used to before. And these microbes produce something called nitrous oxide. Does anyone know why nitrous oxide is a problem?
Does it blows up? Right?
I think it can.
Isn't it explosive? No.
It might.
Nitrogen.
I'm not going to say that you're wrong. It's just not what I'm looking for. It does other bad things. Anyone else? So it's, yeah?
I feel so underqualified to say anything right now. We can't breathe it.
I actually don't know if that's true.
Oh.
Man, I'm terrible. I should have done my research on the other things. So the worst thing that it does, I guess I should say, is it causes global warming. So you guys have heard of carbon dioxide, right? It's the thing that we normally talk about when we talk about global warming. The reason that that's what we normally talk about is because as individuals, that's the one greenhouse gas that we can probably change how much we're emitting. This is different. Nitrous oxide, we don't really talk about it because it's not something that you yourself really have a footprint in, probably. It's largely coming from giant industries like agriculture. But yeah, it's 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide. Just like let that sit. We never talk about it, but it's 300 times worse for global warming. So this is an issue, right? So fertilizers, these things that were like seem like a good thing because they're making plants grow, are causing this bacteria that seemed like a good thing. It was there to begin with, but now because there's so much of this bacteria, it's turned into a bad thing for us. And so with the cholera, we can see that the placement of a microbe can determine if it's bad or good. And with this, we can see that the amount of the microbes can determine if it's bad or good. It's kind of like that idea, like nothing is poisonous if you just have little enough of it. Like milk becomes poisonous if you have like 8 gallons of it at once. That sort of thing. It's kind of the same with microbes. Like there's always some amount of them that can be tolerated or even appreciated in an environment, but too much can cause issues. Another weird example of microbes shifting their allegiances. I work with cowpeas, which are like black-eyed peas, and they work with these microbes in the soil called radiorhizobia, and they usually have this like really great symbiotic relationship. The plants are sending down carbon, the radiorhizobia is sending up nitrogen, they're just trading things all along, they're best friends, it's awesome. Except one day, some radiorhizobium who was super lazy figured out, oh, I could just take the carbon and not give anything back. I can just sit here and not do anything. And as you can imagine, this is not very good for the plant because the plant is not smart enough to figure out that that's what's going on. And so the plant keeps giving and giving and it's not getting anything back. And yeah, this is a big issue. We call these radiorhizobia that are really lazy, we call them cheaters, which I really like. They're cheating the system. But yeah, so this line between good and bad, it's really hazy because these bacteria were doing a great thing before and now they're like sapping the energy from our crops. It's kind of like that one friend of yours that is always dating bad guys and you keep being like, no, like, here's a good dude, like, you should date them. And she's like, no, I can't tell the difference. That's these plants for you. They don't have that ability. They're like, no, it looks the same to me, probably. So, we know that there are good guys and bad guys, but it's complicated, you know, with our health, with our agriculture, with everything else. Some microbes are keeping you alive right now. Some microbes could kill you tomorrow. Some microbes are keeping all of our plants alive and healthy, and some can wipe out entire fields. And there's a bunch more that we'll probably never talk about because they're just off living their own life, like having nothing to do with us, just like every other kind of life. But in the end, microbes are everywhere, and they're not going away, and that's a good thing. We need them, and we can use them for good. Imagine a world where everyone knew about how microbes are everywhere, and we use them in every system, in every industry, we're aware of them. Imagine a world, this is my dream, where an elementary teacher asks her kids, hey kids, what's your favorite fungus? Instead of what's your favorite color, what's your favorite animal? And there's like, you just know that there's like some edgy kid in the back who's like, hey, and he like picks the most dangerous fungus because he wants to be cool. Or like, imagine a world where I go back to that doctor's office and they have posters on their wall, but instead of just showing germs, they show all of the different kinds of microbes that are helping to keep us alive and the ones that are making us sick. So we have a better idea of the whole system. Imagine a world where not every single movie, well, let me start this over. Where movies that portray microbiologists who are doing genetic work on microbes, what if those didn't always end in catastrophe? Looking at you guys! So yeah, then maybe people would understand my work a little bit better. No, I love it. It's good. I love movies. So yeah, at the end of the day, you know, do what your doctor says. Take your antibiotics. The world is going to help you. Wash your hands after you sneeze. Do all those good things. But don't be afraid of a petri dish. Thanks.